Hey guys, this is Dr. Sarah Heron from Aero Physical Therapy, and I'm here with ICE today to talk to you about myself a little bit and why I am here. I must admit this is my first time going live on Facebook, so if you can hear me and give me a couple thumbs up, that would be great. Trying to figure out a few things here. So, again, my name is Dr. Sarah Heron, and I am leading up the out-of-network division. Hi, Jeff. Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, I've been spending some time in the background starting up our out-of-network division, which is all things cash practice. So I'm here today to just chat with you about who I am, why I'm here, what's going to be happening with out-of-network, and then dive into a little bit about some of the ways in which I got into cash practice, which includes some specialties that I also want to be sharing with the ICE community, namely hip impingement. That's my baby. So I am a practitioner in Seattle, Washington. I graduated from PT school in 2007, and I didn't end up starting a cash practice until 2016. So we've been open for 3 years now. And throughout my career, I enjoyed treating dancers. That was a previous specialty of mine, or a previous sport of mine. And now I'm really focused on the CrossFit community. That's kind of been my go-to for several years. I'm an old school CrossFitter, started in 2010. And that was really instrumental in both how I healed my body. Hip impingement came about likely due to dance for me, and CrossFit was instrumental in helping to really reframe my movement patterns and help me learn to be a stronger athlete mentally and physically. And then it actually helped me become a better physical therapist. So through that journey, I think a lot of the doors were opened for cash practice for me. So how did I get hooked up with ICE? Actually started sort of in the clinical or the CrossFit management course, the clinical management of the fitness athlete course with Zach and Mitch and Alan, and was able to help propel that course a little bit further with some clinical background. So as I said, I've been working with CrossFitters for a long time and have been a physical therapist for a long time. And so I was so excited to see a course like that enter the Con Ed world. So you'll actually be seeing me TAing some of those live courses with those guys. I'm really excited to be able to come on here live and talk about a couple tips and tricks on the rig or with a barbell down the road. So that will be happening on Fitness Athlete Fridays for you. I do want to plug the course. The out-of-network course is starting in January. That first cohort sold out in like 48 hours. So I'm very sorry if you weren't able to get in on that for the first one, but there will be multiple to follow. So the next course offering will actually be, the online offering will be April 7th, and then there's another in July. And who knows, depending on how this goes, this will likely be something that you'll see multiple times a year. If you haven't already looked into it, the sampler in Vegas, which is also happening in early April, I'll be speaking at that as well in a sort of shortened version of what we would obviously go into in an 8-week course. So we don't need to go into the weeds today about all the reasons why cash practice exists. I think that if you're here watching this, or if you've signed up for the course, then you're already well aware of that. But it is important to note that these classes filled up super fast. And so there's an obvious need for this, this niche or this practice mindset shift, right? Not only is there a need from the standpoint of the physical therapist and our sort of work-life balance and happiness standpoint, but also from the patient and the healthcare standpoint. So we know that there are lots of pitfalls in our current healthcare system. So that is part of why I want to share my journey. And I also want to share that it's sort of trending right now to go out of network and to start your own gig and to have your own side hustle. And that's also not really for everyone. That doesn't feel like the right thing to do for everybody, and they don't necessarily have the location that's available to them, the demographic that would be suited for that type of practice, or maybe that's just not for them. Maybe that's not what they want to do with their life. And so we want to also highlight ways in which you can still make an impact in our current healthcare system. And we know that ICE has done an awesome job of creating content that has positively affected everyone watching this clinically. And so if you're feeling stuck in your current position, or you're feeling like you can't implement those ideas because of the boundaries that are placed on you by the healthcare system, then that's where we want to go with that. How can you implement that stuff? And we'll touch on that a little bit today. So I do want to recognize some of the things that Mike Eisenhart mentioned on Monday. He was talking on New Year's Eve about some of the truths that exist in our current situation. And they are that transparency is key. Building trust is how we actually connect. There is a shift in mindset from what can I get to what can I bring or what can I give to a situation. And then finally, communication needs to be simple, clear, and effective in order to thrive in this game. And I want to just mention that those are truths that I will carry over in this out-of-network themed part of ICE, because there's a lot of sort of overzealous information out there that I think is overwhelming and isn't completely transparent. So it's my job as a mentor and as a teacher to make sure that everybody is aware of those truths and to build trust with you as my students. So transparency is key for me. And again, I don't want to go into all the details on this today just because I want to be respectful of time, but let's just touch on this. Transparency is key. This is not a situation where you are going to just work minimally and make tons of money. Whoever said that is not giving you the whole picture here. You are going to work a lot. It is truly a hustle. When you hear that term, that is the truth. I work all the time. It's actually 5:30 in the morning here in Seattle. And I've been up, working, and I'll head to the gym and get my fitness on, but I will work until the evening tonight. And that's okay because I love it and I feel like I'm giving back, and that isn't burdensome to me. But the truth is that my hourly rate, when I break it down, is not anywhere, what's being touted elsewhere. So it is a hustle, and I want you to be really realistic about that. Okay, 2, building trust is crucial. So again, I want to build trust with my students and with the ICE community that I'm not going to be bullshitting you. Okay, I walk the walk. This is my clinic. I brought you here today so that you could see I actually do have a physical space, and that is not necessary for everybody. But that is where I practice out of. And I want to just highlight throughout our journey together the pros and cons of that, the pros and cons of being in solo practice for a while before I hired, the pros and cons of hiring, the pros and cons of having a physical space versus renting from somebody else, and the pros and cons of making this a full-time gig versus, like I said, a side hustle or sort of a side project while you earn a salary elsewhere. So 3rd, there is a shift in mindset from what can I get out of a situation to what can I bring to a situation. I do think that physical therapists are really good about this, and they often are very altruistic and giving and loving, but sometimes it's hard when we're not feeling like we're getting paid enough or we're being overworked. We do kind of get a little resentful of that, and that's perfectly normal. But I want to, again, bring to the table, how can I not just what can I get out of this situation or what can I learn, but how can I bring something to this situation? So my objective is to guide you guys down the right path and make sure that you're making choices that will resonate with you and will be positive for you, not only personally, but how you can best affect our patients. Because in the end, that's where we all went to PT school, to give back to our patients, right? Okay, so now these same principles apply to how I approach hip patients and how that sort of became a specialty for me. So, and that specialty led me to cash practice in essence. So transparency. First off, I am very clear with my patients about their diagnosis. So hip impingement, which we'll talk about more in future weeks, is sort of our clinical specialty here at Arrow. And a lot of times folks come in and they're like holding up their MRI and they're very concerned about everything that it says. And the truth is that I care more about my physical therapy diagnosis, as we all do. So I'm very clear with them about the differences and where I can affect change and where I probably can't affect change and why that is or isn't important. Okay. I also talk to them about the truth about what we don't know. So we don't know a lot about the long-term outcomes of the surgeries that are being performed. What we do know is that there's rampant rise in the surgeries being performed. So that's problematic, right? Just because we have now access to imaging that shows what we can see, and now the insurance covers this procedure because it didn't a few years ago, that doesn't mean that all of these patients need these surgeries. And that also points to we don't have information about how they do if they had surgery or if they didn't have surgery. So for me, transparency with my patients about all of that was really crucial. I'm also very truthful about the plan of care and the prognosis. You know, a lot of the documents that I've written that are online point toward this took my body years to heal from. And, you know, I still have bouts of pain here and there. So I tell most of my patients, this is going to be a process. You're going to be working with me for a long time. That doesn't mean I'm going to see you 3 times a week. And that doesn't mean you're going to have pain the whole time, but I just need to be very transparent and very clear about that. And then finally, I'm very transparent with them about my own case. And I think that that leads into the next point, which is that builds trust. Right? So I'm not saying that you have to have the condition that you're treating in your patients, but if you have experience, even if that's clinical experience, build that trust with your patients by allowing them to feel heard and by allowing them to hear the stories of others. That's really, really helpful. Following up is a great way to build trust with them. So sending a little follow-up email after your first visit is a great way to do that. And I think a lot of times when we're working in a situation where we're a staff PT, we don't necessarily think outside the box to do that. We're too busy, or we don't know if that's appropriate. Now, I would say, yes, that is appropriate. Of course, you can talk with your manager and you can kind of figure out what the parameters are around that. And then, you know, a lot of times your patients are already getting email reminders, so you should have that information. And if the patient is fine with an email correspondence, that checks that box. If you want to go through a portal, sometimes there are portals that you can communicate through in electronic documentation in order to be more HIPAA compliant. That's great. So regardless, building trust is really important, and following up with a patient is a really great way to do that. Third, we talked about that shift in mindset. So again, what can I bring to the table here with these hip patients? The biggest thing that I bring them is hope. So again, that comes from a personal experience of having had this condition and really struggling quite a bit with it. But I went out of my comfort zone and wrote about that and put it on the internet. And that blog piece sort of went viral, and that gave people a lot of hope. That's the number one thing that I hear when people contact me about that article. So bringing hope, bringing compassion to your patients, right? Bringing knowledge, bringing patience with them. These patients have been through a lot. These hip patients typically are seeing me. I'm probably their 3rd practitioner that they've seen, and it's been a long journey, years and years. So just bringing some understanding of that and slowing that process down for them a little bit and just stopping to listen is huge. And then finally, this is where you guys can take some actionable items from today. Mike mentioned that communication needs to be simple and effective. He talked about how everybody has a Facebook channel, everybody has a YouTube, everybody is solving a problem, whether that's how to start a cash practice or how to treat CrossFitters, right? So it's really important that we set ourselves apart, and ICE is a great platform because we have this community of people who are already here to learn. But if you are looking at starting something on your own, or even just impacting the world a little bit differently while working in a safer zone, there's communication is huge for you. So verbal, of course, exercise prescription, of course. So let's take my hip patient. I can give them some crazy banded clamshell with all kinds of angles to try to hit their glute med just right. That's complicated, that is overwhelming, it may not be reproducible at home. Or I can take something functional like a hip hinge, simplify. This person has already gotten 500 exercises from other people who think that that's the main thing that they need, right? If I can teach them how to move, break it down simply, we just need to move. That's important, right? And that can be game changing. And then finally, content creation. So even if you're not off working on your own, start writing content. This is the biggest thing that I promote to people that I consult with. Start a Facebook page, start an Instagram page. Instagram is probably a little bit more relevant to our cohort of new PTs or current up-to-date PTs and patients potentially that you're working with. But know that about your patients, know what venue they like to use, and start creating that content. Just start putting your information out there. That's going to build all those trust factors, transparency, be yourself. Authenticity is key, and I'm learning that the hard way. This is very much out of my comfort zone to be teaching and to be online like this, but I know I have a lot to share, and I know that it's really important to get out of my comfort zone and do that. It's good for me. Again, if I think about what can I bring to the situation though, and I make it about others, it becomes a lot easier. So that's, again, that mindset shift. So I look forward to working with you guys more. I will be back with some hip tips, I believe on a Tuesday. And then in future weeks, I'll be talking about out-of-network tips and tricks, as well as some CrossFit stuff. So you'll see me around quite a bit. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Leave your comments below, and we'll look forward to chatting. Have a great rest of your week.